were Devers and the Red Sox in alignment or not?
You were spot on.
Was there any alignment over there? They did not mention that at all last night. The alignment.
Honestly, there's a great scene where Dwight has to be polite, and he really can't do it successfully, so he just says, excuse me, kind sir. And it's this really awkward inability to launch. Mm-hmm. I was on that. Ken, I was banned from the press conference.
I don't understand that. I was watching the whole thing waiting for your question last night.
Yep.
I was waiting for it.
I sent the request to the group so that everyone would see that I asked Ken, can I just get the Zoom link? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, overnight hosts on other radio stations were on it, but I was not. Mm-hmm. But
also, does Duke Castiglione have his own email, or is it said Jay Castiglione?
Yes.
Is he a Joe also, and they just call him Duke?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or is he still on the old man's email? That's what I was trying to figure out last night.
I bet that's a nickname for another Joe.
Right.
That would be my guess.
Right.
But Curtis, Santo and I were watching. I said, Santo, Curtis is going to ask a question. We were on the edge of our seat every time. Also, the way in which they handled that press conference, they need one person in charge that says, you send a message saying, I have a question, and then they choose that person. Everybody trying to talk at once over and over again was not helpful.
No. Well, did they awaken everybody from a deep sleep shortly before it started? Or, I mean, I'm not one to criticize what others wear.
Right.
But,
right.
I understand you're Zooming from home, but
Right.
Could you throw a button down on or something? I mean,
that's a great question. We're going to run that up the flagpole.
Okay.
And they throw you off with the time. I was entrenched in NBA Finals pregame coverage.
Yeah.
But you, right again, I got to give you props on this one, big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to give you – I mean, I heard some of it through, social media because, like I said, I was watching NBA pregame. But it seemed like, based on it, I know it's just what they say. It seemed like they tried to work things out. They couldn't deal with the behavior.
Yeah.
And that maybe he could have been a divide in that clubhouse. I've seen that before.
But then at the same time, you listen to Craig, and I love Craig. I think he's a great interview, great guy. But to listen to him yesterday go on, and thank you for listening, Craig, because clearly he heard Curtis say that they didn't shop him around. Craig did not like that was a narrative yesterday. So he spent that entire press conference trying to combat that.
What's that?
That they didn't shop him around. He's like, I heard the narrative today, some people saying that we didn't try to shop him around, and this was the best deal for us. It still didn't make sense. He kept going back to this was the best deal for us, but I'm not going to say it's the best deal ever because maybe that wouldn't have been the best deal for us.
Okay, but what does that have to do with Rafael Devers being a problem in the clubhouse?
Yeah, dividing
because
the clubhouse.
I think that they're trying to use every excuse to make it not about money.
Yes.
And I think
okay.
That's what I think.
And there's been problems. We've done it. There is a perfect example of a guy who is more talented and as big or a bigger headache in Manny Ramirez. And when the ownership group had just this one little team, there was investment from the top to the bottom where they said, no, you're gonna get in line until the end of the deal in 2008, and they got Jason Bay.
Yeah.
In this case, the ownership is totally distracted, and the only reason you call a single team is to not ruffle feathers in your own clubhouse with the player. But when the player is the one requesting the trade, there is literally no excuse not to call every team.
But
in
I
baseball.
think the Manny situation is different because that was a better baseball club. That was a better baseball team. They were a team that when you had Manny, you were losing in the ALCS. You had gotten to the World Series. I think
it also wasn't a team full of young, impressionable guys.
Yeah, you had Pedro on that team.
Who you need to be able to show leadership to.
Right, you had Veritek
What a
on
last
that.
question on that presser. I mean, like, oh, is the reason why you're worried about the clubhouse and the culture because you've got young guys in the clubhouse? I'm sorry, Roman Anthony does not care what Rafael Devers does. I don't think that. I don't think it's.
Courtney,
it's not.
What are you talking
It's
about?
not giving Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer or all of these young guys credit to be their own person. The fact that anybody could sit there and say Raffy Devers being upset that they want him to constantly be moving to one position or another would affect Roman Anthony. Roman Anthony is an unbelievable player.
No, but Courtney, I've been in the locker room where we traded away Randy Moss and elite talent. There gets a point in time and the front office, the coaching staff feel like this guy can divide the locker room or the clubhouse where he's so influential, he can get in people's ears and be like, oh, this coach don't know what he's talking. And the reason why I say that is because, and I can't remember, somebody might have said this on our group text message, there was no real response about Devers leaving in a positive way.
I said that.
From any player.
I'm assuming that we will get to what Jaron Duran said during they said it, but I may have missed some of it, but I looked around social media and I didn't see any sad, gushing farewells.
Post
from his teammate, Ceddanne Rafaela.
I didn't see that one. I saw one post in this whole time, and that was from Alex Cora.
Yeah. I mean,
not one single teammate went to social media, and they all have social media saying, we miss you, we love you, Devers, good luck, or anything like that.
No.
And when you are in a clubhouse or a locker room or dressing room in hockey, if there's that one influential voice who's been around for a while, who the front office or the coaches or ownership feels like he can start getting in the ears of younger players, which makes it the divide between player, coach, management, however you want to.
But it wasn't against management because Cora and Raffy had a great relationship. So it wasn't like a Gerard Mayo situation last year where players weren't agreeing with him.
Maybe they felt like management felt like he was going to be a bad influence when it came to the players on how they viewed management. Maybe not Cora.
Right. You don't understand the organizational system in which if the guy who is your highest paid employee isn't willing to do things to help out, then everybody else says, I don't have to do anything to help out either.
No, I understand what you're saying there. I just think
it's an awful example for a leader to set.
He's not a leader, though. Raffy Devers is not a leader on this team.
But he should have been.
Then that's on him, I think, Curtis. I mean, that's what he was paid to be.
No, he was paid to hit. He was given $30 million.
He was given the most money, $30 million, that they've ever given to any player, because they expected that a part of what he would do would be leadership.
My man
said they gave him that money because he's one of the best hitters in baseball, and he, after the worst start we've ever seen, has been one of the top 5 hitters in baseball. You win 5 straight, you sweep the Yankees. If I had said Monday morning, if there was no Devers trade of any kind, they land in Seattle, and I said, you know what? They should trade Devers this morning. You guys would laugh at me if that didn't happen. And now, because the organization did it, we now fall in line and say he was about to make everybody on the team turn into Carl Everett.
I think it was a bad move.
These Neanderthals.
I think it was a bad move.
You still think it was a bad move?
I still think it was a bad move. Yeah. But after listening to them, I understand. My man said it best. One of the best coaches that I've ever had in the National Football League. And Bill Parcells said it at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And I think this is what was part of it, just from listening to some of the things that they talked about. When Parcells said, losers assemble in little groups and complain about coaches and players in other little groups, but winners assemble as a team. So what that means, and I've been
chills. I got chills with you.
I've been in this situation before. What that means is there's a guy who's so influential in that locker room. He gets the ears of the younger guys or the other players, and then they go, you know what? Management is doing us dirty. Management did you dirty.
That's fair.
And so what ends up happening is you have a guy that's not willing to, conform to the way they want to run things, and they have to make a decision. Could he potentially get the ears of so many guys, not that you necessarily have a mutiny on hand, but you have guys second guessing or questioning every decision that could be coming down.
What's more likely to happen? That Devers continued to hit, maybe not at this incredible pace that he had been on recently, but he gets you 40 home runs. He's a top 10. He's got 150 RBI. Is that more likely? Or Devers is here and he turns everybody into a douchebag?
Not everybody, but
no. What's more likely, that he's a negative influence on the clubhouse, or he hits 40 home runs with 150 RBI?
I think it's more likely that he has a negative influence on the clubhouse, and you have seen it from the outside without knowing it for the last couple of months, based on their performance.
Right, and they seem to have figured it out.
I mean, for a week and a half, maybe.
And you want to talk about Manny and saying it was a different team. In January of 2006, he demanded a trade again. The team in 2006 missed the playoffs, won 86 games.
Right, but how did they do in 05, 04,
05, they didn't win a playoff game. They got swept by the White Sox.
But they made the postseason. 04, they won a World Series, right? It was a complete – this team is in the basement for the past 4 years.
I understand. Entering 07, they had not won a playoff game in the 2 preceding years, and Manny was still a cantankerous a-hole. Yet they stuck with him, and they won a World Series because the ability superseded the fear of who he was in the clubhouse.
Right, but your talent, you had Big Papi who came into his own. That was, you said 07, right?
07, no Pedro.
But you had, was Schilling still there? Oh, no, you had Beckett. I believe was Schilling still there?
Schilling, who was an issue in the clubhouse.
But what I'm saying is you still had a legitimate.
Beckett wasn't a leader. He just got
No. I'm saying you had a legitimate, talented World Series contender. This team is not that.
But did he sully Dustin Pedroia and Jacoby Ellsbury?
No, but I think you had enough voices in that room.
But what you're saying is he would be. I mean, it's just, to me, it's simple. It's a baseball player. It's the least team sport of all the team sports. And if you have someone of Devers' talent, you don't get rid of him on a 5-game win streak.
I agree.
Can I also just say, I give credit to Craig Breslow because he owned up to how it was handled in the beginning of Bregman coming in. I thought his answer about that, when he was asked, do you wish that maybe you had handled it differently, or if you did handle it differently, maybe we'd be in a different situation today. And he says, I think about that all the time. I thought that it was very, very well said the way he put it, and clearly they know they screwed up. When they brought Bregman in, they didn't screw up about bringing Bregman in. They screwed up about how they handled Raffy with that situation.
And they know they probably lied to him.
Yeah.
Don't you think that Craig Breslow blames Cora for that, though?
I don't know. But I think that they all.
I think Sam does. I mean, Sam was somewhat defensive on that. He requested a follow up.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to make it clear, I think, that they could never be in alignment.
Right.
I don't know, Curtis, if you heard that at all, but there was no alignment.
Great question, Greg.
I think they got to the point where they tried to be, and Devers was like, no.
Wiggy, they were trying to get to alignment, and it is elusive. Alignment,
we couldn't find alignment.
Alignment is elusive. So we will get to talk to Craig Breslow himself about all of these things at 9:30 on this morning show. So,
awesome.
Craig Breslow, the chief baseball officer of the Boston Red Sox, will join us at 9:30 this morning. This is Zach, who is calling from Rhode Island. Zach, good morning.
Good morning, guys. First time, long time. I mean, I just got to say I really appreciate all the happiness that you guys bring me on my hour-long commute to work.
Oh.
I've been listening to you guys for years, so thank you guys very much for that.
Thank you.
First thing, I don't normally do this, but I got to agree with Wiggy. I think that the reason they got rid of him, even though they don't want to say it's about the money, I think it's because he's going to create an atmosphere in the locker room where if, he doesn't want to do this, he doesn't want to do that, now all those younger guys are going to start saying, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. So I think that's why they got rid of him. They don't want to have that kind of atmosphere in their locker room. But I mean, I could be wrong, but
no, I think you're right. I think if you want an example of how it may affect the young guys, and I don't know how it affected the player specifically, but maybe at some point we'll find out. But Rafael Devers was apparently bothered that Christian Campbell volunteered to give first base a try.
Yeah.
Like, how is that good for an organization? Like, now you're basically telling a young guy, wait a second, you're going to do something good for the team that's going to make me look bad. We don't like management. We don't like ownership. Like, every workplace has one of those people,
Right.
and they just destroy the joint.
And no matter,
Not an actual workplace.
but no matter how,
God. And who's had a better role on the team this year, Christian Campbell or Devers? Who would you rather have? All things included.
I would rather have Devers, but
Thank
no
you.
matter how talented a player is, that then divides a locker room, and that becomes the biggest issue. And that's why when I bring up the Parcells quote, that's what he means. And when it's your superstar player who's doing that, it really is a difficult decision. And the fact that I say it's not about the money, because if this wasn't an issue, do they trade him?
But they still couldn't point to a specific
No,
situation.
but what I'm saying is,
If he was making $8 million, is he still
but
on
listen,
the team?
here, listen to me.
Can you answer that?
If he falls in line, do they trade him?
No.
Of course
So
not.
then it's
No.
So then my point is, it's not.
No, Wiggy. If everything is the same and he's making $8 million,
Curtis, I'm not arguing with you. Yes, of course they keep him for $8 million.
that does mean money. It's
No,
both.
no.
Can it be both, though?
It
Right.
can. I'm not saying it can't be.
Okay.
How
But
is he still here?
what I'm saying is the attitude is the ultimate decision maker when they go, do we get rid of him or do we continue to pay him? And the attitude is where they go, we have to move on no matter how
Wiggy,
much
you
we
have
pay.
it backwards. We agree. The attitude's the problem, and then the deciding factor is the salary. Are they willing to swallow $8 million? Yes. $300 million? No. That's why he's gone.
And they made that clear about this being the best deal for them. They wanted to offload that money. And so it does come down to money.
I'm not saying it doesn't. The point I'm trying to say is the attitude is the bigger issue than the money.
Yeah, I think that the best point made this morning was, like, I wish that Craig and Sam said it the way Greg did, where it was just they made a statement for the rest of the team that it's team first. And Raffy not doing that. Then
They did say that, though.
But they did. They said it in a different way.
Well, at one point, Craig Breslow said essentially those things, that they have an identity that they are interested in, a culture that they are interested in,
Right.
and an environment that they are interested in. And something, his exact quote, I think, was something was amiss. Something has been amiss with this team. And they identified that, I guess, as being caused by Rafael Devers.
And he said it. We've been dealing with this since spring training.
Yes.
They were. If this is why I said, if the attitude by Devers wasn't so, in their opinion, completely off, they were willing to work it out. They were willing to pay him $28 million to $30 million to basically DH, and just say, hey, every now and then, if we got to throw you out there, or at least take ground balls for us.
Right.
But he wasn't willing to do that, and I think they got to the point where they said, you know what? The attitude's too much. Yeah, we can save some money initially, but if you don't spend that money, then people are going to criticize you.
Well, you said the same thing when they said they were in on Soto and they didn't spend the money. You said they have to spend it, and they didn't.
Right, but then they went out and they signed Bregman. They went out
a fraction of the money.
But I know it's a fraction of the money. And then they went out and they paid Crochet. So between those two guys,
It's still less.
but
than
it's
half.
still $300 million between two guys.